The absolute largest bankruptcy in U.S. history. No long intros today, we are jumping right in because you are not going to believe how fast a massive financial empire can completely vaporize. $613 billion in bank debt. Think about that for a second. That is the catastrophic anchor that sank an absolute titan of Wall Street. To put that into perspective, we're talking about a number larger than the GDP of entire countries just vanishing overnight. So how does a supposedly untouchable bank even get to the point where they owe over $500 billion?
Well, this wasn't some fly-by-night startup taking silly risks. Not at all. For 158 years, Lehman Brothers survived literally everything history threw at them. We're talking the American Civil War, the Great Depression. They even rebuilt their entire operation from scratch after 9/11. They were legendary survivors.
By the 2000s, they had grown into what everyone thought was an untouchable global powerhouse. 25,000 employees spread all over the world. The fourth largest investment bank in the United States. They were sitting at the absolute top of the financial food chain, which makes what happens next incredibly shocking.
It all started with their fatal flaw, subprime mortgages. These are basically loans given to folks with poor credit scores, which naturally carry a massive risk of default. But Lehman didn't just dabble in this space. No, they aggressively dominated it, gobbling up originators like BNC and Aurora to pump out these high-risk loans.
The sheer, terrifying scale of this operation is almost hard to wrap your head around. By 2006, they were lending almost $50 billion every single month into this high-risk market. $50 billion. The paper profits looked absolutely incredible, keeping the executives super happy, but the foundation they were building on, it was practically made of sand.
And this is where the ticking time bomb really comes into focus. By 2008, they had piled up $680 billion in assets, but it was supported by just $22.5 billion in actual firm capital. In the finance world, this is extreme leverage. When your ratio is that crazy unbalanced, you are playing a very, very dangerous game of Jenga.
Because with leverage this extreme, your margin for error is mathematically non-existent. Just a tiny 3 to 5% decline in real estate values would completely wipe out all of their capital. Just one small market correction, and they literally go to zero. So, what do you think happened?
Right on cue, the housing market cracked, and warning signs started flashing red everywhere. First, 1,200 jobs were slashed when they shuttered BNC. Then, their massive rival Bear Stearns collapses completely. The panic spread so fast it triggered a brutal 73% stock plunge for Lehman in just the first half of 2008. The blood was officially in the water.
So what do you do when your empire is crumbling and investors are panicking? You hide the damage. To stop the bleeding, Lehman executives turned to a super controversial cosmetic accounting gimmick known as Repo 105. It was a maneuver used right at the end of financial quarters to make their balance sheet look significantly healthier than it actually was. A court-appointed examiner later investigated this whole mess and found they used this trick to temporarily shuffle $50 billion of bad assets off their books. They claimed to the public that these were outright sales, projecting this image of a totally healthy firm. But the reality? They were hiding massive financial rot, creating an entirely fictional picture to fool the public and their investors.
And the internal culture during this meltdown completely disconnected from reality. Executives at a Lehman subsidiary actually sent emails pleading for top management to forgo their multi-million-dollar bonuses to show some accountability. The response? Executive George Herbert Walker IV literally apologized that the idea was even brought up. They protected their massive payoffs while the ship was actively sinking.
Which brings us to the final countdown. And things unravel insanely fast from here. September 9th, a key buyer, the Korea Development Bank, walks away. September 10th, Lehman posts a crushing $3.9 billion loss. The next day, the stock plunges another 40%. By Saturday the 13th, the Federal Reserve is forced to call an emergency weekend meeting. Time was officially up.
Over that desperate weekend, Wall Street frantically scrambled to find a savior. But the U.S. government drew a hard line in the sand. Absolutely no bailout. A last-minute rescue attempt by Barclays, blocked by UK regulators at the 11th hour. There was no white knight coming to save them.
And so, on Monday, September 15th, the 158-year-old Titan died. At 1 a.m., they filed for Chapter 11. By morning, those heartbreaking images of employees carrying cardboard boxes hit the news networks, and by market close, the Dow had plummeted over 500 points, sending a terrifying immediate shockwave across the entire global financial system.
The dust hadn't even settled before the empire was stripped for parts in a brutal fire sale. Rivals swooped in, scooping up global divisions for absolute pennies on the dollar. Barclays grabbed the North American operations, including the billion-dollar New York headquarters, for just $1.75 billion. Nomura snatched up Asia-Pacific for a measly $225 million.
But the mess didn't just disappear overnight. Because of the sheer, tangled complexity of their global operations, it took an agonizing 14 years of liquidation to unwind their liabilities and finally pay back creditors. 14 years to clean up a disaster that basically unfolded over a single weekend.
When the final accounting was finally done, over $115 billion had to be paid out to sort through the ashes. It stands today as the ultimate monument to the extreme dangers of toxic assets and unchecked leverage.
U.S. bankruptcy judge James Peck, who presided over the case, captured the gravity perfectly. He called it the most momentous bankruptcy hearing in history, stating Lehman was the only true icon to fall in a tsunami that has befallen the credit markets. They really were the ultimate casualty of the 2008 collapse.
Which leaves us with a pretty terrifying question to wrap up this explainer. Considering the massive systemic risks created by the too-big-to-fail doctrine, are we truly safe today? Did the financial world actually learn its lesson? Or is there another Lehman Brothers out there right now just ticking away, waiting to crack? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and keep asking the big questions.